You know, in a world that feels louder by the day, there's a quiet struggle unfolding just beneath the surface. Most people don't talk about it at the dinner table or mention it in the meetings that rush from one hour to the next. But if we're honest with ourselves, we can feel it in the way so many folks seem worn down, overwhelmed, disconnected, even when they're more digitally linked than at any point in human history. And maybe the paradox of our time is that the very tools meant to bring us closer can, if we're not careful, make us feel further apart. So we have to ask ourselves, what does it mean to care for our minds and our communities in an age where so much of our lives unfolds on a screen? When I think about this moment, these early decades of the 21st century, I'm struck by how rapidly everything has changed. One generation grew up writing letters, the next carries the world in its pocket. Technology became the air we breathe. It shapes our work, our social lives, even the way we measure ourselves against others. And for all its promise, it's also exposed something fragile in us. You see kids scrolling late into the night, chasing validation that never quite satisfies. You see adults juggling the pressures of an economy that moves at breakneck speed, while misinformation streams past faster than truth can catch up. Communities that once relied on face to face connection now navigate echo chambers where fear and division can spread faster than empathy. And even as teletherapy and digital mental health tools offer new doors to healing, too many people are left standing outside those doors because they can't afford the key or don't trust the institutions behind them. It's a time of soaring innovation, but also of deep inequality. A time when breakthroughs in behavioral health sit alongside crises of loneliness, burnout, and despair. And it forces us to confront who we are and who we want to be in this new digital landscape. I've felt versions of this tension throughout my life. Growing up between cultures, I learned early on how isolating it can be when you don't quite know where you fit. Later, as a young organizer on the south side of Chicago, I met folks who carried burdens you couldn't always see, parents working two jobs but still struggling to stay hopeful, teenagers facing pressures they didn't yet have the language to express. Back then, our tools were clipboards, church basements, and a whole lot of listening. No apps, no algorithms, but the human need to be seen, to be heard, to be cared for was the same as it is now. And when I entered the White House, I saw how stigma around mental health could silence even the strongest people. I remember parents who had lost children and felt ashamed to ask for help, veterans who bore invisible wounds, families trying to navigate a system that wasn't built to meet them where they were. I learned that leadership isn't just about policy, it's about asking the nation to look itself in the mirror. And somewhere in all of that, I developed a dry little habit of saying our minds deserve the same compassion we give our bodies, partly because it was true and partly because sometimes you need to repeat a truth until people finally let themselves believe it. But if you sit with this issue long enough, you start to see that it's not only about medicine or platforms or data, it's about what it means to be human. Technology can extend our reach, but it can't replace the slow, patient work of building trust. Innovation can offer tools, but it can't make us use them with empathy. And hope, real hope, isn't blind optimism that everything will somehow work out. It's the willingness to face hard truths and still believe we can build something better together. In a divided world, caring for behavioral health becomes more than a personal choice, it becomes a democratic one. Because a society where people feel isolated is a society where fear takes root. A society where mental health care is treated as a luxury is one where inequality deepens. And a society that ignores the emotional well being of its people, especially the most vulnerable, risks losing the trust and stability that democracy depends on. The moral test of leadership, then, is not simply how we advance technology, but how we protect the people who might be left behind by it. Whether we ensure that digital tools are used to heal, not harm, Whether we speak openly about behavioral health, not as a weakness, but as a universal part of being alive, and whether we cultivate compassion in a world that too often rewards cruelty. These are not small questions. They are the questions that define the next chapter of our shared humanity. And so, as we navigate this digital age, I find myself returning to a simple truth. We are still the authors of our own story. Technology doesn't absolve us of responsibility. It doesn't relieve us of the need to listen, to care, to show up for one another. It just tests whether we will. The future of behavioral health, and really the future of our democracy, will depend on the choices we make now. Will we allow isolation to become the norm? Or will we build communities that reach through the noise to truly connect? Will we treat mental health care as an afterthought or as a cornerstone of justice and dignity? Will we let our tools shape us, or will we shape them with the empathy that makes progress possible? And maybe the most important question is this: in a world moving so fast, can we slow down long enough to care for one another and for ourselves? What kind of society do we become when we choose compassion over indifference? And what might we heal together if we finally recognize that every mind matters?